Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's Cynicalex. And haven't you ever wondered why there are no universal mutants in Marvel Future Fight? That's kind of what I wanted to talk about today. I was going to do a video on Magneto, and I will be doing one on Magneto and Wolverine very soon, but I already did my World Boss Runs with Ebony Maw. It would be nice to practice against Galactus, or at least show you how much damage he can do to Galactus, but he actually can't even do that much damage to Master Mold, so yeah, there's no doubt in my mind that a tier 3 Magneto, even with the CTP of Rage, cannot solo Galactus. So we are at that stage of bad, needs improvement type character. So what I thought of doing instead was talking about the balancing of character types and the creative decisions that Marvel Future Fight has done, and sort of the not incorrect, but the corner they've painted themselves into in a way with some of their decisions, because a lot of people are talking about Nimrod. Is he going to be a uniform for Sentinel? Is he going to be a brand new character? A lot of people are also speculating what type will Mr. Sinister be? What type will Professor X be if we get those characters? And unfortunately, with the way that Marvel Future Fight has designated mutants, it's very hard to imagine mutants being anything other than Blast at this point. Obviously, there are some notable exceptions, like, Toad would probably be Speed, or Blob, these characters recently in Marvel Strike Force. Blob would probably be Combat, but pretty much all other mutants that don't have physical mutations, that use their mind, or that use any kind of psychic power, any kind of thing that involves projectiles, they immediately get thrown into the Blast category. And it's such a broad spectrum of characters, there's very little in common between Mr. Sinister and Professor X. Like, their powers are completely on opposite ends of the spectrum, not only in terms of what they do, but also in terms of the strength of their power. Like, no offense to Mr. Sinister, he's strong and all, and he's immortal, but in a one-on-one battle against Professor X, no holds barred, Professor X, not trying to save him with, not using his morality, he would murder Mr. Sinister. He would put him in a permanent catatonic state. But they're both Blast types, and it really leaves, it's just awkward as hell. It leaves us in a situation where, like, why are all these characters all the same? Their powers are completely different. Like, War Machine is in the same category of character as Doctor Strange, and those characters are in the same category of character as Kid Omega. Like, one of them uses magic and the arcane and stuff. One of them uses guns and a literal metal suit, and the other one uses his mind. It's like the three completely different, it's like a triangle somehow. They're all on opposite corners of a triangle, but they're in the same class. And then you have Cyclops as well, with concussive blasts that are being teleported from another dimension. It makes absolutely no sense. But it's kind of the devs' fault. They've kind of painted themselves into this corner because they decided 2.5 years ago, we're not going to make mutants universal. Universal types are exclusively aliens, and then some humans that we decide deserve to be universal for some random reason. I feel as though, just to speculate, I do feel as though once upon a time, Marvel Future Fight's mandate was, let's make the expensive characters, let's make the rare characters or the slightly more overpowered characters universal. So it was just a really easy way for them to remember and to sort of bookmark, hey guys, we're due for a universal, it's time to rake in the dollars. And you can sort of see that with some of the design decisions early on in the game. Thanos and the entire Black Order are all in the exact same class, they're all universals, and that's fine if the perspective is universals are humans. But then you get some really weird design choices where you can clearly see that some of these characters don't deserve to be universal at all. And yet they are universal. Like, why are 2 of the Inhumans universal, but none of the rest of them are? It makes absolutely no sense why Medusa and Black Bolt are universal, and none of the other ones are. It makes no sense that Doctor Doom is universal. It makes absolutely no sense. It makes absolutely no sense that, all of the other Asgardians are universal, or most of the other Asgardians are universal, and then, yeah, okay, let's just make Sif Combat. Yup, that makes sense. Sif and Scourge are just going to be combat types. Yup, and Enchantress is going to be Blast. That makes a lot of sense. It doesn't. It actually makes no sense at all. And then you've got situations like Dr. Voodoo. Why is Dr. Voodoo universal, but Dr. Strange is Blast? And I don't want to get into a different kind of conversation because I've made this type of video before. I've even asked the devs to consider a 5th typing, Magic, and basically give themselves an update to reshuffle all of the characters, all 200 whatever characters, reshuffle them into these new classes to better organize them. I still think, I know it's a 5-year-old game, but I personally still think there's time to reshuffle the characters to make a new categorization system for them, because honestly, this one sucks. And with every mutant update, it comes back around. So I know I sound like I'm repeating myself. I know it's like, okay, Alex, we've heard the conversation before. We get it. But think about it. Because they've decided that mutants can't be universal, you now designate them into 3 classes. But we know most mutants are not combat. And we know there are like so few mutants that are speed. Like, how many speed mutants do we have? Deadpool, Phantom X, Domino, Angel. I think that's it. Kitty Pryde, Nightcrawler, Rogue. Okay, it's a little bit more than I thought. We got X-23, 8. Okay, it's a little bit more than I thought, but you can already see Rogue could very easily be a combat type instead of a speed type. X-23, like, you know, X10, Weapon X, like Wolverine, could easily be a combat type. So there's really just not a lot of design space left, and I'm just tired of seeing all the best mutants become Blast. And this is basically how it is. Cyclops is Blast, Jean Grey is Blast, Cable is Blast, Magneto is Blast, Emma Frost is Blast, Iceman is Blast, Gambit is Blast. There are so many Blast mutants. It's nuts. Magic is Blast, Kid Omega is Blast, Negasonic is Blast, Psylocke is Blast, Strife is Blast, Storm is Blast, Rachel Summers is Blast. It's like, you know, if Scarlet and Quicksilver were mutants, you know, you'd have another Blast type. So there's just way too many Blast mutants. But that's the devs' fault. So I don't know what to say. You know, I'm excited. I want, you know, Professor X to come to Marvel Future Fight, but I don't want him to be Blast, man. That would be so lame. Another strong Blast character? Like, it's just so corny to me. And basically all characters that deal mind damage are also Blast types. There's like 2 or 3 that deal mind damage that aren't Blast. There's like Supergiant, there's Apocalypse, and there's like 1 or 2 others. But literally everyone else that's a mind damage is a Blast type. But what are you gonna make Professor X speed? You're gonna give him the wheelchair and make him combat? That, you know, jokes aside, there's just no way. And then what about Mr. Sinister? Let's call him Dr. Sinister. Maybe Mr. Sinister could be combat. Maybe he could be speed. But you're completely bending the rules at this point to the point where it makes no sense. Why is Luna Snow speed? Honestly, Luna Snow should be Blast. She really should. Because anytime a character does any kind of energy, elemental-based damage, they're almost immediately classified as Blast type. And I think they know this. It's just bad decisions by the devs that they just don't seem to want to fix. So honestly, what I would recommend that they do is try to fix it. You know, they can fix it with uniforms, like they could give Jean Grey a universal uniform. They can fix it with future updates. They could make Professor X universal. They could make other characters universal. Magneto should probably be universal as well with a uniform. I don't know exactly what they need to do, but they can fix it with uniforms. They can fix it by starting to introduce universal mutants. Or they could do the harder decision, the harder thing, and they could actually reshuffle all the characters to where it actually makes sense. Now, the only thing that I dislike about my suggestions, and actually the only thing that I like about the current system, I know it's not all complaints, so believe it or not, there is something I like about the current system, is the fact that Sentinel's universal. And this is sort of what initially got me thinking about the topic, because we're talking about Nimrod. Nimrod's either going to be universal as a standalone character to go side by side with Sentinel, or it's going to be a uniform for Sentinel, but it's still going to be a universal type. It's not like the typing is going to change. But that's the beautiful thing about Sentinels and about Nimrods and about these robots, these machines that hunt the X-Men, the mutants. They don't have a weakness, right? And so that is perfectly illustrated in PvP, especially where, you know, Blast beats combat, combat beats speed, speed beats Blast, but nothing beats or nothing has an advantage over Universal. So if it were a smaller game, I think that would be a much cooler design choice. At this point, I mean, in a way, it's interesting because the fact that they've put so many strong characters in the Blast class, especially for PvP, you know, Doctor Strange, Jean Grey, back in the day, Adam Warlock. Like, there's a lot of strong PvP characters here. Besides Universals, Universals obviously have an advantage immediately in PvP because they don't have a weakness, but ignoring Universals, because they've put so many strong characters over the years into the Blast class, it has sort of created and forced the player base to create a meta around speed and combat types. So we've really latched on and done our best to exploit the advantages of characters like Quicksilver, characters like Spider-Man with the webbing, and so on and so forth. And then that would obviously build up to a breaking point where people are tired of getting killed by Quicksilver, tired of getting webbed endlessly by Spider-Man, so they start using debuff leads, or they ask the Netmarble devs to make debuff a thing so that webbing is not so toxic, and they start investing in better combat types. So there is some value. I can see over the years how it's evolved, and there has been some value to the current design. The devs are not, you know, stupid. They're not, you know, wandering around with lampshades over their heads in the dark. But at the same time, there is a little bit of a cynic in me that's like, man, you know, as hype as I am for this X-Men update, I am not hype to find more Blast mutants. I'm tired of Blast mutants. I'm really tired of Blast mutants. I don't know if you're tired of Blast mutants, but I am surely tired of Blast mutants. So on the one hand, the best case scenario is they revamp the whole shit. Second best case scenario, is it possible, ladies and gentlemen, is it possible that Mr. Sinister and Professor X, I finally said their names right, is it possible that these characters will be speed and combat or universal, but not Blast? Hit me up in the comments down below. Let me know what you think. Of course, if we were to get characters like Mystique or Omega Red or Sebastian Shaw, all of those characters would be combat or speed. But you know, can we squeeze some of these Professor X types? Can we somehow push them to either combat or speed? Obviously, Professor X wouldn't be combat, but maybe he could be speed. Maybe. I don't know. Anyways, Bacon agrees with me. Hit me up in the comments down below. Let me know what you think. Should we have universal mutants? Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.